Today on American Outlaw, I'm bridging the gap. I'm here with Ken Hackathorn. And guys, listen, Ken, how old are you right now?
79.
79. I'm 45. Ken has been in this business for 50 years, right? And I've been doing it for 20, 25. I feel like I bridged the gap in some things that you guys probably don't know. And so here's what I want to talk about because I probably don't know them either. And so when I first got into guns, and then I left out of high school and became a police officer, a sheriff's deputy. Um, it I don't know what the word would be. We were not allowed to have a 9 millimeter. Period. We weren't allowed to have them. We either had to have a 45 or we had to have a 40. 9 millimeters, they didn't kill, they didn't stop people, they didn't. And then so if you take that to the tier one unit, Delta Force, that we're all very familiar with, they were at 45s and then they went to 40 and they shot the Glock 22 till what, 2016, 17. Um, and I know the 40 got a bad rep by one of my good friends, James Yeager. 40s suck, whatever. I shot a 40. I have seen I seen a guy get a one stop shot with a 40 with a 45, a 357 SIG. I personally saw the 357 SIG. I think those are lucky. I think that happens with any gun as long as you get them in that 2-inch area. But what I knew was we didn't shoot 9 millimeters because they sucked. Now that's not the case today, but can you give me that, 90s, early 2000, why we thought that?
Well, America has always been a big bore country, handgun wise. I mean, you look at from the military history, from the, you know, went in the Civil War with an 1860 Army 44 caliber, went to a single action Army Colt in 1873, which carried us through. In the late 1890s, they went to a 38 Colt and learned kind of the hard way that maybe it wasn't as good a choice. They went back to the 45, hence the 1911. Americans have always been a big bore country. 38 Special became a dominant law enforcement cartridge because in a revolver, which America was a revolver oriented country, the average person could learn to shoot a 38 Special pretty effectively. If you gave them a bigger bore, it's harder. Most cops are not into guns. Back then, firearms training and law enforcement was pretty pitiful. It was the biggest caliber most people could shoot efficiently. So it stung in there. In the private sector, people were more big bore oriented. I mean, 44s, 45s, the 1911. I remember when I grew up, we didn't call them 1911s. It was called a 45 auto. And when you said, I want a 45, everybody knew what you were talking about. It was a 1911 pistol. Um, the 9 millimeter was introduced in America, particularly after World War II, when all these guys brought war trophies back. They were never well thought of. The ammunition was hard to find. It was expensive. They never got any real grip. People wanted an auto, they wanted a 45. If they wanted a revolver, they wanted a 357 or 38 or later the 44 mags and stuff like that. 45s were America's caliber. The 9 millimeter got introduced really heavy in the late 70s, started showing up. Remember the Smith 59 came out in 1973, wasn't that well received. The idea of a lot of bullets was well received, but the ammunition was not up to the, just poked holes in you. Um, in 1985, the U.S. Army adopted the M9 Beretta. That launched the 9 millimeter popularity into the law enforcement world. It was a growth period. Double action autos reigned. The end result, ammunition wise, and here's the real problem: 9 millimeter is just fine if you put the bullet where it needs to go. But people went to, we got a gun, holds a lot of bullets. We can just hose down the general direction, and as sooner or later, one of those bullets will hit and do the job. Well, unless it, and I don't care whether you're using a 45 or a 9 millimeter, they're not death rays. You have to put the bullet into an effective target. An effective target on a human being to stop them is the size of a grapefruit up here or here, or the size of a broom handle as far as the spine. You have psychological hits where people get hit in the elbow, oh, I'm shot, and they fall down. And then you have physiological hits where they either go down from a central nervous system hit or a loss of blood pressure. You shoot somebody through the heart, non-survivable gunshot wound. As long as the blood flow to the brain provides enough oxygen to the brain, you can remain active for 15, 16 seconds easy. people can do a lot of damage in 15 or 16 seconds. There's no magic bullets. People tell me 9 millimeter is better or equal to 45. I don't really believe that. I believe the 45 is going to advantage. I just don't know how great. Is it 5%? Is it 0.5%? Is it? I don't know. Nobody knows. If you tell me, can I get to carry a 9 millimeter? I'm cool with it. I carry them. I shoot them. I'm not concerned about not being able to put my bullets because I practice. I got my own range. I taught for 45 years in the training business. I know a little bit about what happens and how it works. You tell me which is better. Well, my gut says I like a 45 if I have a choice. After all these years and all the stuff, I've got arthritis, man, so bad. If I shoot a 45 very much, man, I can't eat, hardly hold the spoon the next morning to eat my cereal. So I become a 9 millimeter guy, kind of a pussy. Okay, but you got to get in touch with your feminine side sooner or later. So, bottom line is, if you want a 9, cool. If you want a 45, great. Understand it's the guy behind the trigger makes the difference, not the bullet. Because if you put the bullet where it needs to go, it will get the job done. I say they're not death rays. If you know you're going to a fight and you say, "Well, okay, I got my," you say, "Okay, I got my Jason Burton custom," and you got that 1100 or a M4 in your truck, and you say, "No, I'll take this," you're an idiot.
Sure.
You know, handguns are tools that you use when you don't expect trouble. If you expect trouble, it's up. If you want to carry it as a second gun, cool. If that's your primary, you watch too much YouTube.
Sure. So I think that I remember, so I 99 was when I first got my commission. Like I remember I got a Glock. So I got a Glock 22 because my dad's best friend was a cop, and he said I told him at that time I wanted a Beretta Model 92. It was Mel Gibson's gun. It was Bruce Willis's gun. Like that's what I wanted. And then the guy who was teaching me had a 40 in the 9 millimeter. I mean, in the Beretta. What is that one? The uh, 96.
96 of the 40.
96 to the 40. And I was like, this is what I want. They're like, no. And I'm like, fine, I want a 1911. No. So you're getting a dummy gun, and the reason why is it had a lot of bullets. There wasn't a safety. Makes sense. Glock works great for it. It's a dummy gun. Um, but then I got a Glock 26, and they were my FTO was like, nah, you can't have that. I'm like, it's just my backup gun. Nope, can't have it. It has to be a 40.
It'll be a
So
27.
had to be a 27. So I got it. Oddly enough, I got a crappy Uncle Mike's
Ankle.
ankle holster, and I took out running after a guy, and I lost it. We had to get the entire department out there and sweep it. It was so embarrassing, but they were not going to let me not have that gun. But anyway, like we would not have considered a 9 millimeter, and it was about 2012 for me that I remember being like, "Oh, okay, I can do a 9 millimeter now. The ammo's better." But you guys now are just like, "Hey, 9 millimeter only," and I promise, 25 years ago, we didn't. It was not considered. Like nobody wanted them.
No, no, it has changed, and it's a 9 millimeter world, and it's like my buddy Eli, 1776 Duck. He's Mr. 45, God's caliber, da 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 da. That's okay. I'm a 1911 guy. I'm a 45 guy. I get it. But the truth of the matter, it's a 1911 world. By the way, it's a Glock world too. That's the way it is.
Yeah.
Now, people often ask me, okay, I want a 45. I want to have a one built. I want a custom gun or a semi-custom gun. What should I do? First, what do you need on a gun? Then, after you figure out what you need on the gun, what do I want? Because needs and wants are different. If you're going to commission somebody to build a bespoke gun, kind of like Jason Burton, it's going to cost a lot of money. So you really need to think about what do I need, and beyond that, what do I want? Let's take this gun, for example. You want a gun that works. It's got to function every time. I want a gun that's got sights I can see. I want a trigger that I can shoot effectively. And I remember a lot of people on 1811 were ate up with real light triggers. I always tell people light triggers are easy to shoot well. That's the good thing. The bad news, they're real easy to shoot. Maybe when you don't want them to go bang. So what's the ideal trigger pull? What's your need for the gun? Is it a range gun? The gun you're going to carry. A range gun, hey, a 2.5, 3 pound trigger may be ideal. You'll shoot really well. A carry gun, maybe like 4 to 4.5 makes more sense. Because under stress, your finger's on the trigger. You think you're just touching the trigger, you're already taking the slack out. What happens when your hands are cold? I know you live in a land where it doesn't get real cold. Where I live in the wintertime, most nights it's below zero here every night. We go through periods where you go for weeks and never gets above zero. So you don't want a light trigger on any gun, otherwise it's likely to make a loud noise when you're not ready. So what's your trigger pulls need to be? Okay, now we start talking about, okay, good sights, a trigger you can manage, obviously a gun that works. Now, what else is important? Do you need checkering on the frame for a good grip? You don't need it. I want it. So to me, that's an extra. I want a magazine well bevel or a mag well, whichever. I want that done. Okay. For example, you say, well, this kin's got a squared trigger guard. Why? Well, I don't use it. I think it looks cool. So it's not a necessity. It's not a need. It's a want. I think I like it. I don't use it, but I got it. Okay. Beaver tail grip safety. That's something I really want because I big hand and I used to get ate up by the old style grip safeties. I would almost say for me, a beaver tail is now a need. I don't need an ambi. Matter of fact, this is a GI configuration safety, works just fine for me. I don't need an extended safety. It's a want, but it's not a need. Um, you may say, well, I live in a hot, humid part of the world. Rust is a problem. I want some kind of a non-rust finish, like a polymer finish, Cerakote, hard chrome. Some people say, well, I want fancy stocks. Yeah, stocks on a 1911 are like people with Harley Davidson. Nobody drives them off the after they buy them the same. They start customizing, and changing the grips on a 1911 is the easiest way to do it. And you look at the variety here. I like ivory. Are they a necessity? Nah. So you got to figure out what applies. What are your needs? If you're left-handed, an ambi safety is probably a necessity. And then after that, you say, okay, what do I want? What do I really want? And then you can do the total. Get your calculator out, get your cell phone out, and get the calculator, start adding it up. And it's probably going to be a little shocking when you take the the needs and add the wants. Then you may want to say, I'm going to back off and kind of trim it. At some point, when you can afford it, you may say, I don't care what it costs. This is what I want, and this is what I'm going to get. Cool.
Like Clint Smith said the other day, I'm too old to shoot a shitty gun.
Yeah, I mean, and most of us, let's face it, pride of ownership is a big reason we have a lot of these.
Sure, sure. Yeah, I absolutely love them. That's why I have them. All right, so I know you guys don't, you guys not we're in a 9 millimeter world, but there was a time that 9 millimeter was absolutely shunned upon. Like you just didn't carry them, and that was part of my time. And I always think it's interesting that just trying to share this with you guys.